So much, and I mean so much, is in the news. This is a jam-packed show. I hope you guys enjoy it. This is the Derek O'Shea Show.
Welcome to the revolution.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to hang out with me. It literally always means so much to me that you do. If you want to support me, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Derek O'Shea Show. The link is in the description below. I'd greatly appreciate it. Share this with all your friends and families and neighbors. Tell them about the Derek O'Shea Show. It's the only way I'll grow is through people like you. But let's get right into some of my thoughts for today. Last Friday, I had like a long rant that I put out everywhere about kind of the state of everything that's going on in the country, especially stuff with Russia. And I kept saying this since the beginning, that there were so many people clapping and excited about these, let me fix my camera, sorry. These Russian oligarchs, all their property being taken away, and excited about it because it's wartime. People get pumped up about war. They have an enemy all of a sudden, and we can unify together. It's not you, it's somebody else. And so people get really pumped up about it, and they're like, let's take all their stuff. Let's get rid of all their things. Let's cancel them out of the world. Let's sanction them to hell. Let's not allow them to use our credit card systems. Let's just get rid of them, not thinking of the implications. And my first thought was, I can't believe how many people are so willing and excited about this whole thing going down, thinking that one day it won't turn to you. It'll never be me, it's the Russians. It'll never be me, it's the anti-vaxxers. It's funny how these anti-war people are all of a sudden pro-Putin all of a sudden. It'll never be me, it's them. As we saw the truckers in Canada, all their stuff taken away from them. Some people clapped, but people like me saw that as authoritarian and horrible in its practice, and not something that should be ever replicated. Instead, you saw people in our own government clapping it on, as if it was a means in which maybe one day America should be. And so I kept seeing all this stuff about Russia, and it kept reminding me of the truckers. And I know it's like almost a silly comparison because one person is actually doing terrible war crimes, whether confirmed or not confirmed, but they're horrible acts, and war is a horrible and it is hell. But our government is so quick to make an enemy out of anybody. They love the idea of an enemy. They love the idea of the other. Then they can create a power dynamic, a power structure in which you fall into. And they're doing it right now. As I've watched this unfold this weekend, as people were talking about Tucker Carlson like he's some pro-Putin warmongering freak, as opposed to, it's always people that talk about shows like Joe Rogan and stuff like that actually don't ever listen. They'll take clips out of context, or they'll just take what somebody else says and then they'll make it their own statement as if it's fact that way. If you just take somebody else's statement, well, it has to be true. And so many of our news stories do that too. They take another person's news segment, news story, and they make it their own. But I kept saying that. I kept banging the drum of saying, watch, they'll use this on you. They'll use the same rhetoric. They'll use the same language to one day use it on you. And what happens today is that this story kind of unfolded. As yesterday, Mitt Romney comes out and tweets out, Tulsi Gabbard is parroting false Russian propaganda. Her treasonous lies may well cost lives. Now, that kind of rhymes and it kind of makes you laugh and giggle when you hear it said. Treasonous lies may cost lives. But what happens to treasonous people? Well, back in the day, they were hung. They were killed. Treason is a huge statement, especially somebody like him. Somebody like Mitt Romney who dodged Vietnam. No big deal there. I'm not going to bring that up. But he comes out against this, and many Democrats are also clapping, quote-unquote, bravery for standing up for freedom, Ukraine, or as Nancy Pelosi calls it, Ukraine Slava. So that came out. And then Tulsi Gabbard comes out with a response. And here's her response. Let's listen to this because I think you need to hear it as well as me. Here is Tulsi Gabbard's response to Mitt Romney making that horrible accusation. Because, this is what our politicians do nowadays. They don't actually fact check anything or look at the information or try to find out more information. They just take what somebody else says and they just repeat it verbatim because we're not allowed to think anymore. We're not allowed to have a voice anymore. We just say things. So here's Tulsi Gabbard's response.
Me a treasonous liar simply for stating the fact that there are over 25 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine, which, if breached, would release and spread deadly pathogens across the United States and the world, and therefore they must be secured so that we can prevent any new pandemics from occurring. Now, bizarrely, you claim that securing these labs, or even calling for securing these labs, is treasonous and will lead to a loss of life, when the exact opposite is obviously true. The spread of pathogens is what will cause the loss of life, not the prevention of such a spread. So, Senator Romney, please provide evidence that what I've said is not true and treasonous. And if you cannot, you should do the honorable thing. Apologize. Resign from the U.S. Senate. Evidence of the existence of these biolabs in Ukraine, their vulnerability, and therefore the need to take immediate action to secure them is beyond dispute. Just the other day, the State Department's Victoria Nuland acknowledged that these labs that contain dangerous pathogens exist in Ukraine in her testimony to the U.S. Senate.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So
This is Victoria Nuland. This isn't some conspiracy theorist on Infowars.com or whatever thing you want to dismiss out of the gate. This is Victoria Nuland. You should look her up and know her well. This isn't some fake propaganda thing as these multimedia networks are all promoting and saying at the same time. Because typical as corporate media, once they latch onto a narrative, they don't care if it's wrong. They just double down no matter what.
We are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
In a Pentagon fact sheet dated March 11th, there are numerous statements that both directly and indirectly confirm the existence of these biolabs. The United States, through BTRP, has invested approximately $200 million in Ukraine since 2005, supporting 46 Ukrainian laboratories, health facilities, and diagnostic sites. On CBS Face the Nation on March 13th, CBS national security correspondent David Martin said that he'd spoken to a Pentagon official just that morning who told him they're concerned about the existence of these biolabs in Ukraine.
The concern is that the Russians will seize one of these biomedical research facilities that Ukraine has.
This is CBS Face the Nation. This isn't some weird website. This isn't me. This isn't like some independent person trying to start a podcast. This is real stuff. Regardless of what you say about CBS communist broadcasting systems. But again, corroborating everything Tulsi has said, that Mitt Romney is claiming to be treasonous.
That's where they do research on deadly pathogens like botulism and anthrax. Seize one of those facilities, weaponize the pathogen, and then blame it on Ukraine and the U.S. because the U.S. has been providing support for some of the research being done in those facilities.
And we all saw that being propped up everywhere the last 2 weeks because it was being discussed as, some people on one side was saying, well, there's the U.S. creating a narrative in order to engage with troops and stuff like that. So they're like, the U.S. is creating a narrative saying Putin is going to release this stuff. And then the other people were saying these are just biolabs. These are old Soviet style. They're 20 years old, and they're United States and Ukraine have taken 20 years in order to destroy a laboratory, which is the most idiotic statement ever. But, that's what happens with this kind of propaganda, this kind of quote-unquote information. It doesn't matter if it's factual or true. You just say it because you're told to say it. But here's Tulsi as she continues.
Now, in April of 2020, in refuting Russia's accusations that the U.S. was using biolabs in Ukraine to develop biological weapons, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine acknowledged that there are U.S.-funded labs in Ukraine working with pathogens for vaccines and other peaceful purposes. In a CNN fact check on March 10th, 2022, there are U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. That much is true.
She's like absolutely destroying them. But again, I'm going to get to my main point of all this because I think she's missing. I think she She assumes the best out of people, which I love that about her, but I also know our politics and the temperament of our politicians in today's world. I never want to assume they have the best intentions. They know exactly what they're doing and what they're saying and what they're doing. I know people like to credit like Democrats or Republicans are just idiots or something like that. No. They're not idiots. They know what they're doing, and they're saying what they're saying, and what they are saying might come off as idiotic. They know what they're doing.
Furthermore, according to the DOD, there are 2 biolabs in Ukraine that have been under Russian control for quite some time. Russia illegally took possession of 2 Ukrainian-owned laboratories that BTRP upgraded in 2014 and continues to deny Ukrainian access to these facilities. So, Senator Romney, you have a choice. Out of pride, continue to deny the truth, or admit that you're wrong, apologize, and resign. Aloha. Remember that without the truth, we can be neither safe nor free.
Without the truth, we can be neither safe nor free. Ooh, the aloha at the end. I'm just a mainlander. I don't understand what the whole aloha stuff is. But again, Mitt Romney come out and said that this is treasonous. They're creating a narrative like they've done since day one. You can be against the COVID vaccine. You can say, I don't want to take it, and they call you anti-vax. And this is where we get to our special mouthpieces, because they say the thing that all those leftists are thinking and liberals are thinking. We get to the freaking View. Now, everyone says the View is full of idiots, and I don't want to dispute that or argue that fact or that opinion, despite what you might believe. But I think they say things that maybe they shouldn't say out loud. And again, so I went on a rant all last week of be careful. Do not clap all these businesses, credit card companies, Swift, and all that stuff being so willing to take up people's property and things for what they feel is a moral and just cause. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying be careful, because we saw the same actions towards the Canadian truckers. It was like the GoFundMe. They seized that. They took over people's businesses. They took people's cars and stuff like that. They took their identity. They allowed them out everywhere. So then we get to the View. And the View comes out and says probably people like Mitt Romney, Lindsey Graham, some people on CBS, all the people on the left are all thinking, all these people have been creating this narrative that if you are anti-war, you're against the war, all of a sudden you're pro-freaking Putin, and then ergo you're pro like Stalin, or all kinds of idiotic statements have been said. But here's the View right now.
And look, but I think that's an incredibly relevant question. Yeah. And I think DOJ, in the same way that it is setting up a task force to investigate oligarchs, should look into people who are Russian propagandists and shilling for Putin. That's being, if you are a foreign asset.
Shilling for Putin. Putting up, saying Putin's doing good stuff. Or is that woman that was that I have on my show a couple last week saying, Russia's not invading. They're just doing an exercise. These are the type of people who she's talking about. Shilling, lying, spreading misinformation, things that they think people on the right are doing, or people that are just against going to war. And she continues.
To a dictator, it should be investigated. In fact, I remember when Tulsi Gabbard, and I even hate that we're discussing it, because I think to myself, who is this woman? She's she's no longer in Congress. She's a failed presidential candidate.
Who absolutely wrecked Kamala Harris. Let's not forget that. Ever. And Kamala's doing a great job in Poland, by the way. I think Kamala is doing equally as good of a job at Poland as she's done at the border.
Yeah. She only practically exists on Twitter, and the fact that we're giving her oxygen is what makes her relevant, that we're talking about her on Hot Topics. But on the other hand, how do you not call...
Yeah, the View is what makes Tulsi Gabbard relevant. The fact that the View is having a conversation about Tulsi Gabbard, it's keeping Tulsi Gabbard in the know.
Out something that is repeating false Russian propaganda, and that has been brought down.
They used to arrest people for doing stuff like this. If they thought you were colluding with a Russian agent, if they thought you were putting out information or taking information and handing over to Russia, they used to actually investigate stuff like this. And I guess now, there seems to be no bars, and people are not being told to hate Putin. Putin doesn't need a reason to be hated. It's pretty much clear.
He started a war.
He started an unnecessary war
But this is kind
that
of
nobody
like,
wanted.
isn't this contributing to the death at all? And look,
We used to arrest people like this. We used to get rid of people of dissenting opinions, people that argue with the state, people that don't believe the narrative that is pushed down your throat regardless of any factual information put forth. They've been doing this for a very long time. They hate anyone that spreads information that might lead to them looking bad in any way or capacity. So Tulsi Gabbard coming out and rebuking everything that Mitt Romney thinks about her, she's missing the point. Tulsi Gabbard is now in a category. They've put her in a category, and they don't care about the facts. They don't care about any information you give them. She is now in a category like many people like you and me. If you have any dissenting opinion whatsoever, you are now the other, and you should be investigated. You should be put in jail. Maybe we could put you in some kind of camp and maybe re-educate you in any capacity, because that's what's going on right now. If you don't agree with the state, they see you as a traitor, period. You can't have any opinion that's different than somebody like an Adam Kinzinger or a Mitt Romney. And to having a different opinion, you are now the other, and you should be thrown in a camp. And that's my initial thoughts of this week, because it's insane, all the stuff they're going to.